Good morning. It's Monday. We are, three-quarters of the way through, almost three-quarters of the way through March already. Crazy to think, isn't it? It's looking a little gloomy out today. Heard the wind blowing earlier. I love living in the country. Don't get me wrong. I do miss that. But one thing that is nice about living in the country and about the middle of your street where we're at on the block is that the wind's not so bad. Out here, when you live in the country, you definitely know when the wind's blowing, and it blows and blows and blows, and I don't care how tight your house is, sealed up, good windows and everything. Dust. I mean, you just better learn how to dust, or you just get covered up in a hurry, don't you? Out here. So, but good morning, Betty. Glad you're on here. Susan, hope your dad's feeling better today, and Deanna, hope you're feeling better too. This stuff loves to hang on, doesn't it? And Teresa had a week or so there before I got all this junk. She was coughing real bad, and we thought she already had it, and we were wrong. So my wife has gone down for the count today, not feeling very well. So I ask that you pray for Teresa and pray for others in our church. They took Ron Hunter to the hospital last night. Kathy called me, and I ran over there real quick, and it sounds like he's dealing with the same kind of junk, the flu and whatever this cold is, and it's probably like the new strain or whatever. Anyway, so just pray for one another and help each other out. I know some just aren't feeling well, but hey, we had a great day yesterday. We had a great crowd again, and had a lot of regulars gone yesterday too. So Ron, I see you're on here. I hope you're feeling better now. So we were just talking about you, and I pray that you are feeling better. So, but Mrs. Haxton, glad you're on here too. Hope everything is good out there in Washington State, and crazy liberal Washington State. So Joel, glad you're on here. Maria, Dink, glad you're on here too. It's Monday. Just a little bit of news. Don't go to Chicago, okay? I'm telling you. Over the weekend, 22 people were shot in Chicago. Every weekend they give a report on this news that I look at. And I'm telling you, there's like, I can't remember. It seems like there's 700 and some homicides a year in Chicago. But that doesn't include just how many people were shot in Chicago. I mean, you'd be safer to drive through the Ukraine than you would be to drive down the streets of Chicago. I mean, it's crazy, and that crazy woman up there, the mayor, I mean, man, she looks like a cross between Beetlejuice and Don King. And anyway. Stay out of Chicago, okay? If you want any advice from me, just don't go there. It's a war zone. And the UN president, who is like the president of the communistic United Nations, has come out and said that the prices of fuel is good for us to save Mother Earth, and we need to just get used to the high fuel prices, and we must use electricity. That way, if you say something mean on Facebook, they can shut your car down for 3 days. Instead of throwing you in jail, you will not be driving your car for 3 days. Oh, yep. I tell you, Kim, it's hard to believe we're involved with the United Nations. And then they have their little place there in New York City, built by the millions and millions and millions of dollars given by American citizens through our wonderful taxes that supports the United Nations, so they can build their fancy building there and say that it's not it's not American soil. I tell you, just throw them all out and let's become nationalists. All right. Ooh, I just said the word, didn't I? So anyway, so I don't know if you saw this either or not, but Twitter got locked down Twitter locked down Babylon Bee yesterday. Babylon Bee came out and said that Rachel Levin was the man of the year. And if you know who Rachel Levin is, he is the guy that thinks he's a woman who is the head of the Health and Human Services of the United States of America. We have someone who has mental issues, and they are mental, and this man needs help. And every one of these characters that are doing these things need help, and this guy needs help, and he's running the Health and Human Services. And so they came out and said he was man of the year, and Twitter said that you guys are being mean to this man who's now become a woman or thinks he's a woman, whatever, and shame on you. So so Twitter shuts him down, and then Disney keeps fighting with Governor DeSantis on this bill where they need to be teaching our children about transgenderism when they're 5. And governor says, no, you don't. We're not going to do that. And so Disney is all upset and in arms about this. And they are like, we cannot believe you do this. So, as we get in the devotions, there is going to come a day when you're just going to have to say enough is enough as a believer and give up some of this junk and not support it. Sorry, but we are. And then I don't know, with this swimmer guy from Penn State, a couple things. This has been coming for years and years, because every state institution, every university, every state college, even your community colleges teach this junk about transgenderism and the liberal mindset. And not one of them teaches anything about creation. Not one of them teaches you about God. Every last one of them teaches you liberalism in everything, and especially in the liberal sexual ideas of things. And they've been doing this for years, and everybody supports this trash, and they send their kids off to these trashy institutions because they need to do this in order to be successful in this world, and believe the lie that they must be educated by the indoctrination stations. And so they continue to do that and sending their kids straight into the pits of hell. And now, guess what? You have some wackadoodle who needs mental health and mental help, and has decided that he is going to win every kind of trophy that he can win in the women's swimming, and people are up in arms and blah, blah, blah. You know what? You guys did this. Now deal with it. It's your fault. You did it. I don't support you guys. I don't think we ought to be giving any of our taxes to any of these liberal institutions. And I think it needs to come back to communities need to support their own public schools and run their own public schools, and come back to the grassroots of things where every community hires their own teachers, and instead of this state-run education indoctrination stations that are out there. And yes, you guys can all get mad at me. I could care less, because we're sending our kids straight into the pits of hell and think that everything's going to be okay and they're all going to turn out all right. No, they're not. They're not. Okay? So, but anyway, enough of the rant of the day. But the public educational system is ungodly. And until we do a major change in our own hearts, it's not going to change. So, you know, the best thing about state universities is don't send your kids there. They start losing money because of the wackadoodles, and then they're going to be like, you know what, we need to change up the program here. And but we're probably to the point now where if universities start losing all this money, they're just going to raise the taxes so that they can continue to support them through the government. So that's where we're at. But the government has lost their way, and we need to stand up against the unrighteous, and we need to stand for what's right, correct? And so let's do that. So anyway, enough of that today. Don't want to have the meltdown that we had on Friday. That was not a good day. And today is a good day. And I had so much stuff today, and was a blessing to read this. So first of all, I was reading in Numbers 32, and here in Numbers 32, we see that Reuben and Gad, they're still on the other side of the Jordan, and they haven't come into the land of Canaan, but they have taken the piece of the land of Canaan that's on the eastern side of the Jordan River, right? And so they have gone to Moses and said, hey, this is what we want for our inheritance. And Moses said, well, so here's the thing. You guys are going to stay here then, and you're going to start setting up your houses, and then everybody else is going to see how easy this is, and then nobody is going to want to go into the land of Canaan, and it's going to be all over again like it was 40 years ago when we sent the spies into the land of Canaan, and they came back all cowardly, and everybody that was a coward died in the wilderness, and now you're going to end up causing this again. And the only way you're ever going to do this is you have to make the promise that you're coming with us now, and then you can come back to this inheritance. And they learned from experience that you better make up some rules along the way. And so Reuben and Gad said, yes, we'll come with it. And they did. You go ahead and read, and they came with them, and then they came back to their inheritance. And I wrote in my own, I said, there's some times where we just need to learn from experience and set up some boundaries that we have. And then that's where that verse, the famous verse comes that I say it's famous. All of God's word is famous, but well-used verse is that Moses said, okay, fine, we will do this. But if ye will not do so, behold, ye have sinned against the Lord, and be sure your sin will find you out. When we make promises, God's going to expect us to fulfill them. And in our sin, if we want to try to hide things, be sure your sin will find you out. And we just need to be open book with God all the time and confess those things, get them out of our lives, and move forward, right? So that was one of the first things. Then I got on over to chapter 33, and Numbers 33 was fascinating to me. It gives the entire trip of the 40 years that they wandered in the wilderness, and said everywhere, sorry, everywhere that they camped and stayed. It gives us that here in chapter 33. And then I read this in verse 38. And Aaron the priest went up into Mount Or at the commandment of the Lord, and died there in the 40th year after the children of Israel were come out of the land of Egypt in the first day of the fifth month. And Aaron was 123 years old when he died in Mount Or. So we know that Miriam had just died earlier. That was the sister. And now Aaron died, and then just a few months later, we know that Moses died. And I don't know, I just, everyone that was over 20 years old that came out of Egypt were dead now. Isn't that interesting? It is to me anyway. And even Moses died. And I don't know. And then it shows you more of the leadership of Joshua, being able to come in and lead these people when everybody had died, and showed us how important it is to lean on God for direction. And because then God tells him this in verse 51 in Numbers 33, speak unto the children of Israel and say unto them, when ye are passed over Jordan in the land of Canaan, then ye shall drive out all the inhabitants of the land from before you, and destroy all their pictures, and destroy all their molten images, and quite pluck down all their high places. And ye shall dispossess the inhabitants of the land, and dwell therein, for I have given you the land to possess it. Now, the thing you need to understand, that when they cross over the Jordan and come into the land of Canaan, that's not a picture of a believer going into heaven. That's a believer, and there's lots of reasons why, and we can go over those another day. But the picture is of a Christian walking in a victorious manner with God, and having victory over sin, and having victory over the world. And here, I mean, he was very explicit on what they had to do, and they had to go in and they had to get rid of all of that junk. And it just reminded me, he says, drive out all the inhabitants of the land. Be careful of the companions you keep. I mean, we looked at that yesterday about being a friend. I mean, let's be careful of the companions that we have in our lives. And let's make sure that they're good friends that love the Lord and will give you excellent counsel in the scripture. And so, but then it goes on and it says, destroy all their pictures, destroy all their molten images, and quite plug down all their high places. I mean, we just have to look in our lives and see, okay, God, what's worldly and what needs to go? What is influencing me in a bad manner that just needs to go, and get it out of your life, and don't let it influence you any longer. And I say that to you, but I'm saying this to me. This is my devotion, right? I mean, I need to, as you get further set apart for God, that we think that is making us an isolationist, but it's not. It's actually, you are becoming a more powerful tool for God to use to pierce the darkness of this world. And so when you are in the world and walking like the world as a believer, then your battery is weak and your light's not very bright. But whenever you are walking with the Lord and you turn your back on that junk and walk away from that, then you see then that your light is much brighter. So let's do that. Let's be serious about walking with the Lord. Let's be serious about giving him our lives and being committed to him, and just not fall in love with all this trash that the world has and tells you that these are the important things in life. And it's not. I mean, he goes on in Psalm 64. I mean, just God will always watch over the righteous. Okay, and he's always going to take care of us, and we just don't need to be concerned about the things that the world is concerned about. And hear my voice, O God, in my prayer, preserve my life from fear of the enemy. Hide me from the secret counsel of the wicked, from the insurrection of the workers of iniquity, who whet their tongue like a sword and bend their bows to shoot their arrows, even bitter words. That they may shoot in secret at the perfect. Suddenly do they shoot at him and fear not. They encourage themselves in an evil matter. They commune of laying snares privily. They say, who shall see them? I mean, and then he goes on, but he says in verse 7, but God shall shoot at them with an arrow. Suddenly shall they be wounded. So they shall make their own tongue to fall upon themselves. And all men shall fear. The righteous shall be glad in the Lord and shall trust in him, and all the upright in heart shall glory. I mean, you know what? We just need to keep living for God, and and not fall in love with the trash of the world, and stop trying to be something to everybody in the unsaved world, and caring about what they think or trying to impress them in any way whatsoever. It's just, we just don't need that. We need to be focused on the Lord and walking with him. And then I read this in Proverbs 11 today, starting with verse 17 through 21. The merciful man doeth good to his own soul. He that is cruel troubleth his own flesh. The wicked worketh a deceitful work, but to him that soweth righteousness shall be a sure reward. As righteousness tendeth to life, so he that pursueth evil pursueth it to his own death. They that are of a froward heart are abomination to the Lord, but such as are upright in their way are his delight. Though hand join in hand, the wicked shall not be unpunished, but the seed of the righteous shall be delivered. Isn't that good? I mean, we know that, hey, God's got this, and we just need to walk with him, and maybe that's how we ought to pray. Lord, set these wicked people up and cast them down, but whether he does or not doesn't change anything for us and how we ought to be living. And we ought to live for God and trust him. I mean, Friday was a bad day. And you can see that in that devotion on Friday where, that I don't know, some days you just get those days where it looks like the devil's winning, but he is not winning anything. And God reminded me of that also here in Luke. And first of all, in Luke chapter 4, I read this in verse 33 and through 35. And in the synagogue there was a man which had a spirit of an unclean devil, and cried out with a loud voice, saying, Let us alone. What have we to do with thee, thou Jesus of Nazareth? Art thou come to destroy us? I know thee who thou art, the Holy One of God. And Jesus rebuked him, saying, Hold thy peace, and come out of him. And when the devil had thrown him in the midst, he came out of him and hurt him not. And then on over a little bit further, and in verse 41, and the devils also came out of many, crying out and saying, Thou art Christ, the Son of God. And he, rebuking them, suffered them not to speak, for they knew that he was Christ. I mean, the thing that I was reminded of when I read that today is that the demons are scared of Jesus. And they have absolutely no power over anything except what God allows them to do. And it is a cursed world. And they run through this world and they wreak havoc. And God allows them to do that. It's a cursed world. It's cursed with sin. And that is part of it then. And we know that the devil's been cursed and cast here, and so he's the prince of the power of the air, and it's an ungodly world that we live in, and God has allowed that, but God also keeps us and watches over us, preserves us, and empowers us to live in the way that we ought to, and gives us that wonderful promise that greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. And so we need to live for him. And even in the midst of all of this wickedness, know that even in all the trash that the devil is doing, he's terrified of Jesus. And we have Jesus. And so whatever happens to us is only allowed to happen to us through God. And even in that, we have God's protection. And so let's live for him. And then last thing I read, Luke chapter 5, verse 1, it came to pass as people pressed upon him to hear the word of God, he stood by the lake of Gennesaret and saw two ships standing by the lake, but the fishermen were gone out of them and were washing their nets. And he entered into one of the ships, which was Simon's, and prayed him that he would thrust out a little from the land. And he sat down and taught the people out of the ship. And then it tells us that he told Simon Peter, after he was done, he said, hey, cast your net over the side. And Peter said, well, I'll do it, but we've been fishing all night and haven't caught a thing. And he cast over his net by faith and trusting God, and drug in so many fish that the nets were breaking, calls over James and John. They come over to help. and there's so many fish that it almost sinks all their boats. And that's great, isn't it? But then here they are, they have just gotten to shore with all these fish and really all the wealth that's going to come with that. And this is what's said, and so was also James and John, sons of Zebedee, which were partners with Simon. And Jesus said unto Simon, fear not, from henceforth thou shalt catch men. And when they had brought their ships to land, they forsook all and followed him. Isn't that good? So here they are, they had all this wealth, and they could have walked away, rich men, with all their fish and enjoyed the wealth of the season. But instead of that, and all the things that the world had to offer, they threw them away and they followed Jesus. One who had a rock as a pillow, one who had no home here on earth, and Jesus is worth it. And he's worth it in today's society too. He's worth it today for each one of us and every one of us to just follow him and walk with him and find that he is sufficient, and that's all we need today. So that's your Monday thing. I'm sorry, I was reading a couple things here. The internet must be, I don't know, probably my stupid Wi-Fi, but I apologize for that if I cut in and out. Sure didn't mean to, and but hope you got it, and hope you're challenged today. Jesus is worth it. Let's just follow him. Who cares about the stinking world, you know? The only thing we need to care about are souls trusting Christ as their Savior and preparing for the day of eternity. And hey, the meek shall inherit the earth, right? We'll get to see it as God wanted us to see it one day and truly get to enjoy it. So God bless you guys. Have a great day today. And don't let anybody get you down. Tell the devil today, devil, I hate you, and I'm going to live for Jesus today. And you'll find God blesses you throughout the day. Have a great day.